Okay guys, Tuesday morning and we're working on the Acura. I'll show you what sin I found. Already started cutting this out. I had some pinholes up here, that's why I cut up so high. And I was trying to get away from this inner lip. This actually goes into the trunk and it's seam sealed from the inside. That little area I don't believe is actually inside the trunk. But this is the inner structure, and that was all rotted all the way down into here. I've got solid metal back here, so I'm going to cut it and clean it, rebuild the inner structure, put zinc primer on that, weld through primer, and then we'll zinc primer the back side of the patch panel, which will cover all this and roll under here. That way we'll get some sort of corrosion protection. Then I'll go back and probably clean it up inside and etch and epoxy the steel excuse me, that I couldn't get to and that doesn't have zinc primer on it, and we'll re-seam seal that and be done with that inside. So that's all behind the carpet. That's way down in the back corner. I'll give you a little looky-see here. There's the carpet. You pull it back and you can see the light. It's way up there. So we're not anywhere near this little electronics piece of equipment. Not sure exactly what that is. I'm not a Honda mechanic. So we'll get all that cleaned up, and then after all that's re-seam sealed and everything, I'm going to shoot some fluid film. I don't think I can even get this up in there, but way up in that area around that fender lip. And I'll pull the carpet back and do the same side because we haven't lost the other one yet, so we're going to try and save that side before we have any problems. And then I got to vacuum all the crap out of the trunk that fell down in there. Put my welding shield up inside there. I shouldn't have any problems. The carpet's not anywhere near it, but seam sealer burns real nice, so I'm trying to set the car on fire. And we'll go from there. So that's what's going on for now. I'll catch you in a little bit when I get this. All right, guys. Here's what I came up with. We got rid of all the sin on the back side from this inner structure, and I've been working on a couple of patches here. I would have kept the camera on, but I'm not real quick at making these, especially when I have multiple angles. So we've got a patch cut out for this area right here. This steel has been wire wheeled and any surface rust removed from the back lip, as well as all in the front side. The seam sealer has been ground off away from that. It's imperative that you clean both sides of your steel where your weld zone is, or that rust will cause it to pop and spatter and put impurities into your weld. And then you'll have pinholes in your welds, which you may still get a couple anyway. That's why you use fiberglass. So there's that patch. That goes on the inner structure. Doesn't really matter what this one looks like as long as it fits and it's welded up tight. Then we'll zinc primer all of this, weld through primer on the inside. And then we have this patch for the outer. And I'll put the bumper up where it's supposed to be here, so you can see that we're real close on it. I gotta tap a body line into it after I get it up there, but I still have to clean that patch up and get it ready to weld in. It looked like it wasn't a lot of a lot of rust, but once I opened this, remember we had a little rust where my left pointer finger is right down here. That was our rust zone, and it was coming this way. So I did some exploratory surgery, and as you saw in the beginning of the video, this all was crusted back in here, and that would, because this inner, that's not the piece, because the piece that I'm replacing here, because this was actually rotted out and thin before, that was just going to let more garbage in there. So we cut that out. I don't know why I say we, the proverbial we. I cut it out, and we're going to weld this in. And that should slow that down. This actually goes up into the trunk, but this going where the screwdriver is pointing down here actually goes down and dumps out outside of the fender, and there's a double wall there, and garbage can get up in there. So what we're going to do, we're going to weld this in. We're going to zinc primer, weld through primer this whole thing. We're going to zinc primer the back side of this patch panel that will be the final outside cover, and making sure to keep the zinc away from this weld zone a little bit. I can actually get to this from the inside and brush that on, or epoxy prime the inside of most of this once that outer skin is on there. So that's where we're going with it. I'm going to clean up here. I've got metal shrapnel all over the floor. I'm going to get some welding protection on. I'm not going to run the camera while I'm welding because I don't have a good place to set up the camera. We'll bring you guys back when I have these patches both welded in and ready to go. So. Alright guys, I have the inner structure welded into this, and I got this zoomed in for you. You're not going to see me really, not that anybody wants to. I'm using the Miller 180 welder with 023 wire, and basically stitch welding this. It'll be a seamless weld, but I'm piling weld on top of weld, and you just hop around to keep the heat to a minimum. So, and after each weld, there'll be a little ball on the end of the wire. If you cut that off, your weld will start spatterless, usually, as long as your metal's clean both sides. I never understood that for the longest time, why you would cut that off, and maybe some people will totally disagree with me, but it makes a lot of difference. And I would show you, but I really don't feel like burning a hole in this that I have to fill in. I want this to be as seamless as possible. So I'll do a little welding for you and then cut it off and show you when it's done, because this will probably be about a 45-minute process. I am using the auto set feature on my welder for 20 gauge steel, so it sort of figures out your wire speed for you. The welds aren't real tall on it, which are good. They're not porous, which is better, especially when we're trying to keep something from rusting through. I want each one of these welds to touch the one before it so that it gets sealed up, and that's the way I do it. So each one of your welds will probably be about 1/4 to maybe a little wider diameter, or not big, but you don't need much heat to get this to penetrate. Every once in a while this thing has a goofy start. It will start too slow and won't start welding, but I'm starting to like it. Usually you'll have about an 1/8 inch ring around each one of your welds and keep the heat to a minimum. Some guys take a blowgun to it. I used to do that, but then had an old timer tell me just let that metal cool, because when you cool naturally, because when you blow it, you end up shrinking it, which that's neither here nor there. I'll end up tapping these down anyway. It's not like I'm welding a door skin on or something. This is a rust patch, so it's probably not quite as critical. But after I get these welded, I'll take the wire wheel over it and clean all the soot off and the debris off from the weld process, so that I have a clean surface to continue to stitch to. So that's how you do it. I'm going to continue on this. I'll clean up my welds real quick with the wire wheel. I leave my welding helmet on. It's got a grinding feature on it so that it doesn't auto darken. So I'll grab you guys off the stand here, zoom back out, and that's what we have. I'm just going to start filling in the gaps, you know, a weld here, a weld there, a weld there, a weld there, and so on, just to keep that heat zone not so concentrated. The panel is going to warp a little, but we're going to try and keep that to a minimum. So I'll catch you guys when I get this all welded. Alright guys, the patch is welded in, the welds are dressed, and I've got it tapped down. I'm going to put some fiberglass filler in it. That's about it. I'll have to feather that paint back a little bit farther because I guarantee I'm going to have to bring my filler out farther than where I have that paint ground away. So I'm going to feather edge that back probably another inch or two and double check that I'm low enough here to start putting my fiberglass in. If not, I'll tap in along this weld seam so I can get that in there to get that waterproofed up. I'll cross grind it real quick one more time, real lightly, to make sure we got good adhesion, and we'll go. Alright crew, we got some fiberglass. It's got some red hardener in it. I kind of like that because you can see it easier. That's Duraglass brand. Any short strand fiberglass will do. It's not like we have big holes. You could use a long strand, I guess, but it's a pain in the ass to sand, and you're really not looking for the extra strength. You're just looking to waterproof it. So we're going to let this dry up and knock it down, and then get some light weight on top of it. You can see my fiberglass is almost touching my feather edged paint. That'll all come back off. I just wanted to make sure I got it pressed in there real nice and tight, and I'll probably knock that down with some 40 just to make sure it's low enough and it's sealing up the welds, and we'll throw some light weight on there, and we'll come back to you when I get to that. I'm trying not to make this video too long. Alright guys, it's 6:45. I'm calling it quits for the night. The patch is in. I've got Duraglass over the welds. There's 2 smears of body filler on there, and I had to build up my edge a little bit at the bottom to get the bumper to line up correctly, the bumper cover that is. Wasn't that far off. It's a lot of tweaking. There's multiple angles. The fender, let's get a little closer here. The fender sort of rolls in and up. So there's like a little bit of a lip out here, and then you have this body line I had to recreate, and then we're making that match up with the bumper right there. So that's where we're at for today. I'll get this one uploaded for you guys, and we'll come back on it tomorrow.